She's like, can you just spank me? Because I want this to be over.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I know Jasmine felt that way. Just spank me.
sure.
I'd rather this be a spanking than a conversation.
But we did the opposite of how we were raised because we didn't like the way that felt. Like I would get a spanking and literally like no follow up. No, my mom would spank me and then tell me to stay in my room and then never come back.
That's when you
she'd-
wish death upon
Right.
her.
And then she'd come back and be like, oh, you're still in here? Like, bitch, you forgot about me? Like, I don't understand. You don't feel one
Wait,
ounce
so
of
you
remorse?
had capital punishment and then you had
Solitary
solitary
confinement.
confinement, which is two things that they have found
That are
psychologically
Destroy
damage
you.
people.
Right.
so
I didn't want to
so
psychologically
again,
damage.
statute of limitation,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
I
it's 20
appreciate that,
years.
Mom.
You're
Thanks.
like, I got you, girl.
Welcome to the Push Podcast.
Not
Push-
you.
Oh,
Push
this is
podcast where we discuss everything and anything under
What?
under the what?
under the sun.
Welcome to the Push Podcast. This is episode number 92, counting down to 100.
That's right.
I don't know why I went like Sunday.
know.
Like, what is that called? Hot Rod Show?
No clue.
Anyways, we have a special guest today, and her name is Jordan Kalia Copeland.
Hello.
Hello.
She is finishing her sophomore year at LACSA, which is LA County
High School for the Arts.
She's an actress. She's a singer, even though she doesn't like to sing anymore. And she is our youngest daughter.
She's a
Hi.
baby.
Yes. Hi. It's not that I don't like to sing. I just don't do it for other people.
She doesn't do it the way we want her to do it.
What?
Right. Right.
Everything we like about like musical theater and being in the arts,
I've revoked.
She no longer wants to do.
Well, it's kind of sucky for us because you and your sister are the ones that forced us to love musical
Right.
theater. And now you don't even want to participate in musical theater. So I don't know.
But
how I
you
feel
love
about
theater.
it. Okay, fine. So anyways,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about parenting today. And here's why. Lately, we have been
Apparently, there's a
we
new
have
generation.
been noticing that there is a new generation of parents out there. And I was hanging out at a birthday party for a bunch of little ones yesterday. And one of my friends said, I blame the internet for this new generation of the way kids are being parented. And it's very much like, letting the kids kind of process their feelings and not reprimand them for having fits or for not wanting to hug their grandparents. And so we wanted to have a discussion with the only child that was home at the time, Jordan Copeland. And now I hear Jasmine coming in. But today's going to be about parenting.
Yeah. And, this is interesting because parenting is a big part of our life. It's probably one of the most important job that we've had that we have never gotten paid for. So from a standpoint of labor laws, it is broken when it comes to parenting because you're not paid for it. In fact, you actually pay to be a parent, which is pretty crazy because you pay for everything in their life.
Yeah.
It
You
was
pay
also
for school.
it was also a conscious decision on your part, might I add.
Right.
Yeah, but they
It's
told
optional.
me that I would get paid.
But it's a privilege, not a luxury, right? Just
Paid
like
with
your-
my success.
They told me when I signed up for it, they said, yes, there's going to be a payment system built into it.
Oh
I
my
never found out
gosh.
where that was. So I'm talking to HR right now about the parenting problem. But
I see.
As we head towards 100 episode, we thought, okay, this is an important part of our lives. And so we wanted to get some perspective on this and really understand like what this kind of old school, and I don't know, I don't think our parenting was old school, but I think there's an old school parenting and then there's kind of this new age of parenting that is very, very conscious of the emotions of the kids, where I don't think that was part of the program for me or for you, right?
Right.
And with that, like there's a different approach to events that normally would have been handled through my childhood and probably my parents' childhood with a little bit more force and a little bit more
AKA spanking
Yeah.
and ass whipping.
Absolutely. I'm not talking about capital punishment. Am I talking about capital punishment? Maybe.
Perhaps.
But how that shapes children, and I think that's an interesting conversation. So we brought the little one in who probably had maybe 1,000 lashings her whole life, right?
What? No.
So wait, I asked you a little while ago, I said, do you think that we were strict? Like, when I say strict, my mom was really strict with me. Like, really strict. Like, there were rules around everything. I got spanked a lot. Like, there was just a consequence for everything, even the things
What's
that
the
were
statute of
accident.
limitation of child abuse? Is it?
We definitely crossed that in my household. And what's interesting, it has, shaped me into the person that I am, obviously, but it's also shaped my sister who lived in the same household, who had the same upbringing, the same rules. It's shaped her in a different way.
Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting.
And so when I became a parent, there were things that I wanted. Like, I thought, I want to be strict with my kids, but I don't want to beat their ass like I got my ass beat, right?
Right.
And I asked you, Jordan Copeland, earlier, do you think that we were strict with you? What's your answer?
Strict is different, I think, in every household, because I wouldn't say that they were strict. They might think they were, but I wouldn't say that at all. I think I was comparing it to how strict my friends' parents were, and like not letting them like go out with their friends on like a school night. And I was allowed to do that. I am allowed to do that. And so I don't feel like there's strict in that sense, but there is a sense of what I cannot, like what line I cannot cross.
So there's expectations,
Right.
but not so much like restrictions and rules.
What do you think is harder?
Correct.
Do you think it's harder living up to the expectations, or being under
Or
like
coloring in the lines.
or being under the rule of the iron fists, so to speak?
Well, Bob.
Well, actually, I wouldn't know what it's like to color in the lines or to like obey like that standard. So I think I've had my own struggles, and people who are under that like parenting style have their own struggles. So it's like difficult to compare when I don't know.
So basically you're saying, like, regardless of how the parent parents, there's going to be some sort of struggle that each child has to go through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because, like anything else, right? So when you're brought up with a high level, and I would say, and maybe you can correct this, that we had pretty high expectations for you, right?
Yes.
And your sisters. Yeah. And so I think those expectations probably kept you somewhat busy, where other parents may not have vocalized the expectations, but did vocalize the expectations of following the rules.
Right.
And so do you think that could have played a difference? Like, when in your conversations with your friends, did they share the same, like when you thought about your expectations and what you felt like you needed to meet, was it the same or was it different?
It's the same in the sense that like neither of us can understand what the other is like doing, but I think it might have been easier on me compared to like a friend with with strict parents with rules, because while I may have like followed rules in my household, it was never the term rules. These like, this is what you cannot do, this is rules. I'm going to sit you down and I'm going to tell you what you can and can't do. And I think that plays a part when you're talking to like a child who all they want to do is just like go and like run. And when you tell them no, you can't, it's
these are the boundaries.
It's different, like emotionally, and like how you handle that.
Got it.
Yeah, it was funny when you said that, because I was thinking, well, we told you can run, but you got to run real fast, because we want speed in this family, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I kind of want to clarify, because maybe people are like, well, I have rules in my house and you have to abide by them. And I would just tell you, our children have never been disrespectful.
Right.
They would never like talk back to us, cuss at us.
Right.
They would never, sneak out of the window to steal the car.
Right.
They would never come home drunk. Like, those are things that we haven't had to deal with. So I'm wondering why, because I thought we were strict in the sense that, I'm going to guess now your definition's different. Like, strict in the sense that my expectations of you doing a good job when you go to school, because that's your only job, do it well, right?
It's not the fear of punishment, it's the fear of disappointment. Because when you don't have the term rules, you have expectations, and you can do this because I know you won't do this, and I know it's an honest environment. So if we do something that we know we should have talked about, and we feel that disappointment, I feel like
worse than getting a spanking.
Right. Right. It hurts more.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Like, and that's the worst you can do.
That makes sense. So I asked you, like, if you wouldn't categorize us as strict, what things would you say? And you, I guess, kind of thought of some things that, like, we maybe instilled in you when you were younger. What comes to mind?
Closed mouths don't get fed.
What
of
does
course.
that mean for the people?
If you don't ask for something, you won't receive it.
Yeah, nobody knows. We're not mind readers. Like, everybody
Right.
has a busy life, and the world doesn't operate like that. Like, if you don't become a strong communicator, then closed mouths don't get fed. You'll get passed up.
Yeah, and can I just add something? Because
Mm-hmm.
the last episode about what in the world was that I don't have socks. Is that the reason why I don't have socks? I have a closed mouth when it comes to having socks. Or
I'd say.
it's 'cause
Did
I
you
feel-
steal dad's socks?
I did not steal dad's socks.
I literally still only have one right good sock, and the
Sounds
left
like
one
you need to go
is-
shopping.
Is sagging.
So we demanded that you spoke up for yourself. I'd say, like, me as a mom, it was important that you guys learned how to advocate for yourself. So I didn't, like, I remember taking you to the doctor, and when you were sick, I wouldn't speak on your behalf. I would make
Right.
you do it.
It was a terrifying feeling at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely helped with my social skills growing up, like, and voicing my opinions, talking things out,
Ordering your food at a restaurant.
right,
Sending it back if it wasn't what you wanted.
which is difficult to do because waiters are the scariest people on the planet.
Ridiculous. So that hasn't quite worked, but do you think that in comparison to some of your other friends who are at your age, like, you do have a stronger sense of, like, I'm going to advocate for myself because this is wrong?
Oh yeah,
I've seen you do that with your teachers. Like,
Yeah.
we have a problem. Can I set up a meeting with you? We need to talk about this.
yeah, and then my friends look at me like I'm crazy. Like, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna do that? Oh wow, you're really gonna say that?" I'm like,
I'm gonna
"Yes."
have my mom call her. Right?
Right. My friend actually said that to me today. Like, if our teacher doesn't understand why we did this, I'll talk to my mom about it. And I was like, you'll talk to your mom about it?
Y'all are in high school.
I
What is your
know.
mom
That's
gonna
what I
do?
said.
Well,
That's
so
crazy.
really quick. So you think about we think about our parenting. We have a perception that we gave you all space to kind of speak for yourself. We really advocated for, like, you being empowered in your own right, and we really, like, pushed you guys from a standpoint of communicating and making sure that you communicated to us if you stumbled down the wrong path, or if you did something wrong. Like, you communicate when you got a bad grade before the report card comes out, right?
Right.
So we think about, like, we're talking about, like, old school parenting, which was very different for us. Like, you hear a lot of terms, and you didn't hear this in our household, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we would, in our house, I remember when I was a kid, you'd be told to do something and you couldn't ask why.
No questions asked.
Don't kids don't talk. There's to be seen, not heard, right?
Right. And it was different with me. I would always ask questions because I wanted to know what I was doing and what it was for, because I felt that everything needed a purpose. And if there wasn't a purpose, why was I doing it?
And I don't recall you ever saying, like, if I said, hey, I need you to do the dishes, like, you would never say, well, why? Like,
No.
that's a snotty ass child.
That's different.
Like, we wouldn't
Yeah,
have
you probably would
tolerated
say,
that.
but I did it yesterday, and she didn't
Right.
do it, and she didn't do it, but it
Right,
wasn't
right.
like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this?
Our issues in our household with our girls growing up was things weren't fair. No
Contribution.
fair, she
Yeah.
goes in the shower first. No fair, I cleaned the restroom last week. No
It's all
fair.
about fairness.
It's all about fairness.
When fairness
and
doesn't exist in life.
Fairness is not even a thing, so just shut up and clean it, right?
I even did a post on the unfairness really quickly, and I talked about the fact that I'm glad the world is not fair, because if it wasn't fair, then we wouldn't have the obstacles that created these amazing stories that changed the world.
So wait, you're glad that the world's not fair, because if it were fair,
If it were fair,
Okay.
We
then
wouldn't have
we
these.
wouldn't have obstacles, right? You think about your story. You think about the stories that really touch your heart. It's because they overcame obstacles. They
Some sort of
overcame the
unfairness.
lack of fairness. Now, things should be equitable in a sense, but fairness is not the same. But we also knew that, and we probably didn't tell you this, but we also knew that fair is very different when you think about kids. Because what you need and what your sisters may need are totally different. And if you
Right.
all got the same thing, at the end of the day, it still wouldn't be fair, because you may not have valued what you got that was the same as your sisters, and vice versa.
yeah.
And so you all, as parents, if you're a new parent out there and you have multiple kids and you're trying to spread the love and everyone get the same thing, the reality is they still won't see it the same.
The reality is your middle kid probably won't want the love. So then you can just spread that to the other two, right?
Right.
So I think the rule for us, like the way that we saw parenting was we're going to parent in the household the same way, like the same kind of, not rules, but the same expectations apply to everyone. But each child has a different way that they need to be talked to, communicated, explained to, like that sort of thing.
Right.
Right.
And you're pretty easygoing about like taking things. Like I can be pretty hard on you. Like, hey, you left this here. I asked you 5 times to do it. And you're like, you're right. I was distracted. I'm sorry. Let me do it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Ownership. Let's see. Ask for permission. You said something about.
Don't ask for forgiveness. Ask for permission.
And what does that mean? Because that's something you said that we kind of expected from you.
Right. It goes hand in hand with the disappointment thing, like asking for forgiveness or like saying that you're sorry. Like that you have something to apologize for, and that hurts you inside knowing that you've disappointed them. So it's better to ask for permission before you disappoint.
Like, what was the rule? Tell the people what the rule was around like ditching school. So just before you answered ditching school, I ditched a lot. Like, and I got in trouble. I got like a major beat down in 7th grade when I ditched with my friends. So what did I tell you about ditching?
Ask if you want to ditch, because if you ask, there's a higher chance, not the chance, but a higher chance of
I just won't let
getting
you
a yes.
Well, it's so funny.
Right.
Who do you need to talk to if you want to ditch?
Your mom.
Yeah, because I'm always gonna say no.
Go to school.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even approach that with that.
And so the thing is, though, like, how many times have you literally ditched school?
I think senior ditch day.
She's not a senior.
Oh,
she's
I thought you were talking to me.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay, senior ditch day, Mom.
No.
You knew about that.
You have asked before, like, Mom, I don't feel like going to school. And I'm like, okay, give me a good reason. Why? And then what does that usually result in? You going to school.
Right, because I can't give a good reason. Right.
But that's a good rule, right? Hey,
Yeah.
if you want to ditch, I'm fine with that. Let me know. And the reason for that, just so you know, was because I didn't want some emergency call coming through to me in the middle of a workday telling me my kid was in an accident when she should have been at school.
Right.
That's the whole, like, don't ask me for forgiveness. You should have asked for permission first. If you were going to take your ass to the beach with your friends, I need to know, like, how are you getting there? Who's driving? And I would have been fine with that. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay.
And that's important.
I'm not about forgiveness. I'm about just keep me in the loop.
But what's interesting, and I hope and that you take this as well. This is not so much to say don't take risk, right? Because in life you're gonna have to take risk. You're gonna have to put yourself out there. You may have to even bend the rules a little bit. But I think when you're in a family structure, I think that's important, that you're not putting people in the situation where they're surprised by something that damages something in the house or even like trust, stuff like that.
So can we talk about how many spankings you've received in your life? Because the kind of way that we went about parenting was, I, more than Dad, was like, I want them to have a little sense of fear. Like, I want them to know, like, you will respect me. It is my home. And Dad was like, no, he had a terrible time with his stepdad, like abusive. So he was like, I don't want my kids to ever fear me.
Yeah, I was triggered by that.
Right, you were. And I was like, well, I'm going to demand respect. I don't know about you, right? And that kind of played out in the beginning stages of our marriage when our kids were younger. And that was really frustrating for me because I saw like them talk to you a different way than they would talk to me or try to pull things past you. So was there a learning for you? And then my curiosity is like, how will Jordan raise her kids? Like, do you want them to be afraid of you? What's your take on that?
Are you talking to me?
You go first.
Okay,
You go first.
we got a 3-person panel, so you got to call names.
Eddie, what is your take on this?
So I still remain the same. As a father, as a fairly large person in out of the norm, I didn't want them to fear me in any type of way because I'm their father, and I also still think that through. Like, I don't want them to fear a man, right? And I think that sometimes that can get passed along where you fear a man, and so I wanted to have a relationship with it where there was respect, but also there was a level of what I didn't want I didn't want them to have fear for me. I wanted them to have a level of respect. And I think that played out. I think that there are times where respect is a subjective thing. There are things that I'm a little bit more loose with as far as how they respond, where Janelle, in her mind, because of probably how she was raised, that, there was no response necessary, right? So those are things that I think as parents you're going to have to deal with. Like, I think we learn that I can't parent like Janelle, and Janelle can't parent like me, because that's just not who we are. But at the same time, you have to have compromises and understandings.
Yep. And so when it comes to being strict with your kids, well, answer the question, how many spankings have you received in your whole life?
None.
Okay. And is that because that's not because we were soft with you? That's just because you never did anything that we thought was like worthy of. Okay. Now she's about to get her ass beat.
We also talked a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that that was frustrating at times, but I think it helped.
She's like, can you just spank me? Because I want this to be over.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I know Jasmine felt that way. Just spank me.
Sure.
I'd rather just be a spanking than a conversation.
But we did the opposite of how we were raised, because we didn't like the way that felt. Like, I would get a spanking and literally like no follow up. No, my mom would spank me and then tell me to stay in my room and then never come back.
That's when you wish death upon her.
And then she'd come back and be like, "Oh, you're still in here? Like, bitch, you forgot about me? Like, I don't understand. You don't feel one ounce of remorse."
You had capital punishment, and then you had
solitary confinement.
Oh my God.
Which is two things that they have found psychologically damage people.
Right. So I didn't want to psychologically
damage.
Statute
of limitation, I'm pretty sure
I
is 20
appreciate
years.
that, Mom. Thanks.
You're like, I got you, girl. So what will you do with your kids, though? I asked you, like, do you think you're going to spank your kids? Do you, like, how do you think, are you going to be strict with them? What will you take from what we taught you, and what will you do differently?
If I had kids, I think I don't want any sense of fear. I just want a sense of respect. I want a sense of trust, like a community, kind of like a bonding that that if you do something wrong, it'll probably hurt me more than you, and that'll instill like you should feel disappointment like in yourself,
Yep. Love it.
Can I just add to that? I think that's so important, and I think your version of fear, honey, was different than my version, because I think when I think of fear leads to mistrust, because you don't trust anyone you fear.
Yeah,
right.
And
that's what I would.
Right. So my clarification on that, I think, is exactly what Jordan just articulated. Like, I wanted her to have respect for me so that she wouldn't talk back to me, right? So she knew that there was a consequence to choosing to disrespect me, but she never exercised that. Like,
right.
So we never had to get there. So I don't think it was because she was like, oh my God, I'm fearful that my mom's gonna whoop me or chase me with a machete knife. Like, my eyes don't turn red. I'm not a monster. That's not the fear I'm talking about. But the fear of disappointment is a real thing. Right. And I was not only afraid of capital punishment, but I was afraid to let my mom down. I think as a kid, you always want some sort of like acceptance. You want to make sure that your parents are proud of you, or you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, right? And so I think that that's probably some of the reasons why you didn't make some of your decisions, is because you knew you didn't want to let us down.
Right. And like for children, I think praise is the one thing that they value above all else. And so when you give them the opposite of praise, or when they feel the opposite of praise, it's just terrifying, and you never want to feel that again.
Right.
Especially if it's like an imbalance, like all you're doing is like identifying the things, because kids are, the crazy thing about kids, they're going to do more wrong things than right things because they're kids. Like, from a standpoint of learning life, they're going to fall before they actually walk. They're going to, stumble before they actually can run. They're also going to misspell a word before they can actually spell the word correctly. They're going to do all these things. They're going to make more mistakes in their lives than they are going to have achievements. But I think when they do have the achievements, I do think that's when you have to make sure that you elevate their confidence to continue to go by a high recognition.
Right.
I think that's important.
I like that. I learned something from my brother, Jonathan. He's a lot younger than I am, but I remember picking him up from his like kindergarten graduation. And again, like, we had the same mother, right? I was taking him to his kindergarten graduation, and he was talking about this teacher that he had. He was a little kid, right? I was old enough to be driving. And he's like, I love Mr. Fairbanks. Like, he's so great. Blah. He's my favorite teacher. And when I get older like him, he's such a good dad. I want to be a dad like him. And I was like really intrigued by the fact that this young, my brother being so young, how do you know what a good dad is? I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, he only spanks his kids when they do something wrong on purpose. But if they make a mistake, he never spanks them. So he says if like his son was outside in the front yard, they were playing basketball and he broke the neighbor's window, he wouldn't get spanked for that because that was an accident. If he went over and he broke into the neighbor's house, he would be spanked for that.
Yeah.
And I remember being so proud of him, like, because that's the environment that we didn't grow up in. There was just a consequence for everything and you were going to get spanked no matter what. And so I learned that from him, and I hope that we did that with you. Like, you're going to make mistakes. We want you to make mistakes, right?
Right.
And when it came to your grades, I think you would agree, like, I don't see my version, and maybe it's wrong, but my version of the expectations around education was not so much that you got straight A's, but that you did truly the best you were capable of. Like, I would have been okay if you got straight B's or C's if that was the best that you were capable of getting. But if it wasn't, then yeah, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Did you feel that, or does that seem untrue?
She's like, no, I want you to be perfect.
No, I remember talking to her when she was being kind of lazy in junior high school. I was like, I would be fine with this if this were who you were, like this was the best. But I don't know if it really hit you, or if you were just like, okay, listen, we got some high expectations in the Copeland household, so I don't want to come up short. So which was it?
High expectations. Okay. Don't want to come up short. It's because the education system is just, it's terrible. It's glorified prison system. It really is. And like, you're teaching a class, a whole classroom of people who are at different levels, and you're teaching the same thing every day. And when you don't give them that like opportunity to talk to you about where they are, you'll get lost. Mm-hmm. If you're above average, if you're below average, you'll get lost and you'll get thrown off track because you're moving at a different pace than everybody else is. And that's nobody's fault. But it makes it seem like it's your fault for moving at a different pace.
That's good. So what will you do differently than with your kids? Like, when you raise them, is school not going to be that important? Like, what will you do differently?
School's going to be important, but I want them to learn, to enjoy learning, to go and like, I learned about this today. I learned about the rainforest today, and I want to tell you everything I know about the rainforest. And that's great. I don't value homework assignments because you're at school for 8 hours a day, or I'm at school for 8 hours a day, and you're given 4 hours of homework, and you're spending 12 hours of your time each day dedicated to something that you've already reviewed in class. You already know, and it's pointless. And I know for me, that's a huge struggle because there are periods of time where I can't do my homework, or I don't want to because I know this, and I don't know why I should keep practicing this because I know this.
That's good. Okay. One issue we had a disagreement on, Dad and I, when it came to like raising you kids was there was a time where you got on the basketball team, and then very shortly into this, you didn't want to be on the basketball team, and you were crying, begging me to take you off. And Dad was like, nope, she got on the basketball team. At one point, she wanted to do this. She doesn't get to quit.
Yep.
And then there was another time where you were dancing and you wanted to quit dancing. And then you were singing and you wanted to quit musical theater. And then you were in gymnastics and you wanted to quit. So I was like, okay, I don't think that it's right to force her to do something that she doesn't want to do. But also, are you a quitter? Like,
well, can I just say this?
I think,
I thought, so what's interesting is that, like, you are, I'm talking to you, Janelle, because it's a 3-person panel. Jesus. You are a creative person.
By the way, for the record, you're the only one struggling with this.
I just want to make sure everyone knows who I'm talking to. Because you are a creative person, but you also, when something looks really cool, you'll stop what you're doing and abandon it and go to something new.
Okay.
And so I thought that that's what you were like allowing her to do, is to like, oh, if that's not good, you can move on to something else.
And I thought, since you played basketball in high school, and since you were 12, or from the time you were 4 to 24, I was like, people don't have to come out of the womb committed to one thing and play it forever.
Yeah.
And you very much were like, no, when you start something, you finish it. I'm like, there is no finishing a sport.
Let me just say right now, neither of these point of views was what was going through my head.
This is great. So
I strive for achievement, and I got on the basketball team. That's achievement. I'm done. I am absolutely done.
I had no clue that that's what your goal was. I thought your goal was to actually play on the team.
Oh, no.
But it's funny because it's like we had this conversation with all of them at some point. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, Jasmine, there was times where I know she wanted to quit something and I didn't let her. And, and she was really upset with me for a while.
Oh, I bet she's still upset.
Yeah,
she's still mad at you.
And I did, and then you won over because she did quit the team. But I never had ever quit anything. So a lot of times, people listening to this as parents, like what you feel is like your deepest values, like you want to press upon your kids, and they may not value that as much.
But it's their life.
And that's their
what
life.
I was like, it's her life. She doesn't want to play basketball. Maybe she wanted to sign up for the team to get on just to make you proud. And then she was like, oh, wait, I don't really want to do these games. So what was it? Like, because you said, I set out to achieve. I achieved. I'm done now.
Yeah, I also didn't really like the sport. I happened to be good at it. And so...
Shaking my head.
I got on the team, but I didn't want to do that. That's not what I want to do.
All those Laker games we watched together as a family.
See, you're pushing your expectations onto her. But what will you do with your kids? Like when your kids go out, so the grandfather will say, make them play, don't let them quit. What will you do?
If they want to play sports, I have no problem getting them into sports.
What if they want to quit?
That's fine. That's totally fine, because I want them to try as many things as possible before they find something that they want to dedicate their time to.
And that was my philosophy, because I didn't have the opportunity to do cheerleading or to play volleyball or to do any of the things I wanted to do when I was a kid, because we couldn't afford it.
Right. And I think I was confused as a kid, because I remember when we went to like Universal Studios or like Six Flags, you would say, try the ride once, and if you don't like it, you never have to go on it again. That's how I applied.
Never told her that.
That's how I applied it to everything. And I was like, I don't like it. Why do I have to do it again?
But so here was our fear, and this is the legitimate fear we had.
Can we talk about that rule really quick?
Okay, go ahead.
Because we apparently had no rules, but that was a rule that Dad and I had established. Like, if you're raising your kids to have fear and like, oh, I don't want to do that, I'm scared, it's scary, I don't want to eat that for dinner, that doesn't look good, right? So the rule in our house was you have to try it at least one time, because that's what we're serving for dinner. And if you don't like it, then we won't make that anymore. But you've got to eat that tonight, because that's what we're eating, right?
And most of the time we liked it.
Right. Period. Which is why, again, you got to try things, right? Even if it looks scary or looks like you might not like it, 90%, I would say 99% of the time, you guys liked everything we gave you. Even when we made you try sushi or whatever it was, not you. But same thing went for hard, scary things. Like, I'm afraid to get on stage. I'm afraid to get on this roller coaster. I'm afraid to whatever. We were like, try it once. If you completely despise it and it's not what you like, then you don't have to do it again. So that was, I thought that was a really good rule.
Right. And then I found something that I wanted to do again. And I was grateful that you didn't force me to stay in basketball, because if you did, I wouldn't have found the thing that I wanted to do again.
Right. Which was theater.
Which was acting. Yeah.
So
well, that worked out. Because I would have. But so here's the thing. So what I was afraid of, and I think your mom was too, was if you were joining these things in the moment that it got hard, or the moment that you weren't as good as you thought you would be instantly, that you thought you were confusing that difficulty with liking it.
Right. And I think sometimes I do that, but I didn't understand why you were fearing that at the time, because that wasn't what was happening.
Yeah, and that's important for people to hear, because like kids they don't always have good emotional literacy, right? And so they don't always know how they're feeling because they're experiencing things. And so, you have to try to help them with those things. And that's what we were concerned with. We were like, okay, she gets in these things, and then as soon as it gets hard or difficult or uncomfortable, she's like, I'm out. I don't like it no more.
Right. And I remember when you got older, I asked you, okay, I'm going to paint the picture for you. You've quit this, this is and this. My fear is that you become a quitter, right? We had that good conversation.
Right.
And you were like, I'm not a quitter. And I said, okay, it's a habit, a pattern you've got to watch out for. And so I think that's what you mean when you say we talked about a lot of things. We wanted to just see where you were at, how you were developing, all of that stuff. So
and that's a good point, because like kids do have to have opportunity to search and find out the things that they love and enjoy. But I would tell you, with your kids, just passing the grandfather on, hopefully you don't become a grandfather for another 45 years. But what I would say is that the kids don't know what it means to love something until they feel the success of it. And that success will come at some cost of a little bit of pain. And so if you allow them to quit, then they never really get to push through that barrier. Because just like in musical theater, you knew it started off, okay, I love this. And then you had some hard roles, and then you pushed through, and then you felt what it felt like to have the applause, right? To have that feeling like, oh my God, I accomplished something that a lot of people can't do. Right. And so I just think that that's important when you're thinking about your kids and allowing them to quit things. It's like, okay, is this a quitting because it's uncomfortable, or is this a quitting because they just don't find interest in it?
What do you think?
When it comes to theater and me like discovering that, because I failed a lot in theater, and I think I keep at it because when I fail, I learn something every time. And I didn't feel that if I was failing in something else, I was learning anything. But this, I do. Like when I fail and I ask why, I always know why, and then I can use that information and then do it again, and then I'll get it, and that's the best. Yeah.
That makes sense. I love it. So you're getting ready to, it's sophomore year ending, and then you're going to be a junior. So we only have you, our youngest, for 2 more years. Are you eager and excited to leave the Copeland household? Like, peace out, I can't stand these two. Or are you like, I'm going to stick around for a while and I like my parents? Or like, what happens when it's ready for you, time for you to go?
Leave. I'm going to go far. It's not to get away from my parents or my family. It's just, I want to be able to grow without my parents' influence, and I want to be able to fail without my parents' influence. And you can't personally develop in a place that you've been your entire life. You can't gain anything if you're in the same place. And I feel like that's physically and mentally and literally and figuratively. I don't know.
I think that's such a great answer, though. And I just,
Well, we're always going to be with you. We're always going to be influencing
But
you.
off the topic of parenting, I feel like that helps someone who is stuck in a job that they don't like. Like your environment matters, and there are different lessons out there in the world for you to learn. And I don't think that they all have to be learned in Covina. And so we have, I think, done a good job. You can, correct me if not, done a good job of telling you the world is huge and you should go out and experience and explore it. Whereas I have a lot of friends whose kids wanted to go away to college and they were like, no, I can't, she can't go across the, nation. She's gonna be 3 states over. And what if something happens? I'm like, our kid's going to a freaking Scotland, you know?
Right. And at that point, it's not about you anymore. It's been about you, their entire time, like you're raising them, and it's about you. It's about the way you raise them. It's about the way you love them. And now they have to learn how to love themselves, to love somebody else. And they can't do that if it's just like confinement, you're confining your child if you are selfish enough to say, I can't let you leave.
And you stole the words out of my mouth. It's so damn good. Selfish, because I do feel selfish sometimes. Because I'm like, no, I honestly, I do. I feel like sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't want my daughters to leave.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
and I'm like, okay, but then at the same time, the higher sense of me says exactly that. Like, you have to let go of them because like that's you did your part. Like in the, you think with your kids and you go, okay, they're always my kids. I'm going to have a certain level, not of control, but of influence of and there is still your oversight. Like, you still oversee their lives in a sense, but when they get to a certain age, you're just like, okay, now you have to go and do your thing, because now you have to learn how to become a person in this society that is a person of value.
Well, life has to teach you lessons that you're unwilling to learn from your parents.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And it's true. Like, at some point, especially when you become 18 and you have fulfilled your role as a child, it's time for you to learn new lessons from life. And life's going to knock you down sometimes, and it's not going to be fun and easy all the time. And adulting is hard, but you have to learn that on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not something you have to be home for.
And then there's always that that is true, but sometimes your parents will not have experienced everything that you're going to experience. And so you can't learn from them if they don't know either.
Yes.
So you have to be separate in order to learn those lessons.
You're going to have to do a whole lot of stuff to get past us as far as what we don't know, because we know a whole lot of stuff.
But we don't
Especially
know
when we
stuff
get-
in the
stuff.
theater world.
Just
We
joking.
don't know experiences with auditions.
Like,
we don't
Kayla,
know.
like, you guys have never been to Scotland. You
Right.
don't know the mannerisms and like all of like the acquaintances, and she has to learn that stuff for herself. Like, that's not something you can teach her. So there's a point in time where
Okay,
I
you got
can't
us.
teach you anymore.
Right. And I am also excited. I told Jasmine today, I said, imagine being Kayla's age, right? She's going to be 17. And imagine like something happens, heaven forbid, she breaks her arm, and she's got to go to a hospital in another country and explain how insurance works in California. And like, that's something that a lot of people are too afraid to do. And she's not,
Right.
Imagine all of the work it's going to take to figure out how to potentially get a job, your first job in another country. We don't know what that, I've never done that. You've
Right.
never done that. So you're absolutely right, Jordan. There's going to be things that as you guys grow and get older, you'll experience that we will have no advice for you because we had never done that, right? But Dad just doesn't want you to ever think that you're going to be smarter than him. And
So I was going to think, can we quickly go do those things real quick so we can just say, oh, let me show you.
Oh, I got a job in Scotland.
I got a job.
Oh, my
I went to
gosh.
5 different countries and got a job. And I know
In every
exactly,
country.
Just so I could show you.
just so I could just show you the process.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for being a good kid. And for just being so wise. You've always been really wise. Like, people when you were 2 said you had an old soul. You listen to old music. Some
Yes,
of
I
your
do.
favorite songs are from like the 90s.
Yep.
And I just want to say you're a great kid, and
You
I
are a
hope
great
that
kid.
we've been great parents to you.
Yes, you have. Wonderful.
And if not, you'll be in therapy for something.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Which is what I've told you your whole life.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I'm doing the best I can. If at any point you feel like you can do better, take it up with your therapist, with your own insurance, right?
Right.
So,
Not on our insurance. I'm just joking.
because Dad is keeping a running log of how much money you owe us. So, will you take care of us when we're old?
Yeah.
Whoa, hesitation.
Whoa,
You know
I
what?
did
I'm
not
gonna find my
hesitate.
own
I didn't
care. I'm gonna
hesitate.
find my
I
own care.
did not
I know.
Kayla
hesitate.
for sure hesitates.
I have my own care.
I will give you a house where you can live your days.
By ourselves.
Okay, by
Yeah,
yourselves.
Like
Yeah.
indolence. Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
Last question, just really quick. Do you have friends? Because this was a big issue for me growing up, even still, honestly, to this day at 42 years old. I have friends that have amazing relationships with their parents, and they go to them for everything, and they're like their rock, right? And I always wanted that. Like, I always wanted, God, I wish I had a solid, like, parent relationship like that. Did you have friends where you felt that way? Like, God, they have such a good relationship with their parents. I wish I had that.
No. I have a great relationship with my parents. Because of like all of the talks we had like growing up. So I feel like there are like, they know how I operate and I know how they operate, and it's like a good dynamic. And if anything, if I see like my friends who don't have a good relationship with their parents, it just makes me feel more grateful that like we know each other so well and that we're able to work together so well.
Yeah.
And
And then I want to adopt all of your
What do you think you got from your mom?
Like, in what way?
Just like anything, like a trait or a characteristic.
I sound like her sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
voice, my color, I think we look alike. I don't
Our
know.
way of communicating, I think.
No.
No, actually, I think I got that from Dad.
Okay.
Sorry.
What did you get from Dad?
I feel like we try and well, we have these like huge ideas and that we try and convey with words, and it doesn't always work.
I think we share a sense of humor.
Yeah.
You definitely
Yeah, we
share a
have-
sense of humor.
Yeah, we have this. We understand each other's humor
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
very much.
Yep.
So,
I think there's a lot to unpack here. I think that, you do the best you can as a parent, but I do think that every child's different and everyone's going to receive and perceive something different. So if you had a great, upbringing and you decided to parent your kids in the same way, that can come with lots of problems because your kids might not be like you. One thing I think we messed up really quick, and then we can go. I think we messed up not allowing, there was no struggle really. Like you and I struggled a lot. Like there were finances that were missing. There's a lot of no's. There were spankings. And I feel like that's
you mean
why
in our upbringing? Okay.
I feel like that's why we turned into the people that we did. So I was always worried, like we didn't put our kids under any sort of there was never any dire need for anything. Like
Right. And I feel
Yeah.
like if you intentionally did that I would question your parenting.
But I would
skills.
say, I think,
but like our
I think
kids never had to watch each other. Like
Right.
our oldest didn't have to babysit, right? I had to
Well, we're
raise
also
my
so close in
siblings.
age.
Yeah, but I also think I feel like we're undefeated. But I would say this. I'm not joking. I would say this. I think that we replace that struggle with a high standard that they've set
Yeah,
for themselves, and I
right.
think that there will be a certain. They don't have to overcome the kind of the survival
Right.
mindset with money and all these different things. I think they'll go into those things that can really hamper your finances and how you live your life. They'll go into it with a different mindset because they didn't have to overcome those things, those ideas that were kind of implanted in us.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think like going hand in hand with that like whole classroom setting that I painted, that like people are
The
moving at different
prison system.
right.
The prison system. Right?
Each kid needs to be parented a different way. Like I sometimes like I look at my sisters and I'm like, who parented you? Because I don't understand you. And I'm like, it's just they like my parents know us so well that we all function differently and we're all our own people. And that's not a bad thing. It's like it's wonderful because we learn from each other constantly because of the things that they've experienced and the way that they were parented by the same people.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
All right.
thank you so much for listening. If this was helpful for you or you have any parenting advice to share with us, please take 2 seconds to leave a review and we'll send you a Pusher t-shirt and a Guide to Thrive journal. Thank you, Jordan Copeland, for being a guest. This
Thank
was
you for
a
having me.
special episode, and you're a good child.
And tell them to
Thank
push
you.
through.
Push through.